Hi, this is Kerry Artak with Wicked Stocks, bringing you your daily Tesla report for Friday, November 29th, 2024. Before I jump into the charts, if you weren't watching yesterday's video, just know that earlier this week we put out a stock pick on AstraZeneca. You can see that for free at wickedstocks.com. It's at a very important inflection point, and we give you the precise locations for acting on that information. You get 5 days to see everything we've done over the last couple of weeks. Most recently, Mara Holdings, Affirm Holdings, et cetera, et cetera. So check out wickedstocks.com. I'm going to jump to this chart. This is a weekly bar chart, goes back over 4 years, and we've got a big test today in the market. 337.91, nearly 2-year channel top that we closed above for the first time on a weekly basis last week. Now we're back below it with a day to go. And, you know, on the far right, if you look, now, by the way, I don't know if you remember or not, or if you do this on a regular basis, but this document is downloadable for free. You can get that, just scroll underneath the video and you can see where to get that. So a couple of milestones here for you to note. One is just closing, yes, back below 337.91 doesn't look good. That is a failed buy signal, which is, in terms of the big picture, these longer term signals, a failed long-term buy signal is, in a sense, or in itself, I should say, a valid sign of weakness. And so anticipating then a bearish continuation in the weeks ahead. But we're not fully there yet. Now, we did on the daily chart, and I can show you that right here. We did close below this nearly 2-week channel bottom on Wednesday, that today is at 338.45. So there's just a lot going on between 337.91, which is the long-term weekly channel top, 338.80, which is the long-term daily channel top, and 338.45, which is this 2-week rising channel bottom. And so this area may well contain buying not only for the day, but as I've been mentioning, into next week, because on the daily chart, we have a short-term sell signal down to 312.81. But when you're looking at the weekly chart, the failure to follow through on a long-term buy signal that has been and still is, in a sense, expecting 500.46 over the next 3 to 5 months, I'd say at the soonest, but some point in 2025, the failure to follow through on that by rejecting it, by closing back below it, you must consider it a valid sign of weakness that could, over the next month, 2 or 3, yield that 536.45 channel bottom, which is about a 6 to 9 month channel structure in its own right. I think that is kind of the big picture. Now, initially, we do have 276.41, and that would be kind of a 3 to 5 week target if we were to close below the 338.80 formation, 337.91 formation on the weekly chart. Now, there are some downside thresholds, and I do want to point those out. For those of you who are like, you know what, I got long, I'm going to stay long, let's see what happens next week. Number one, 1% below 337.91 is 334.53. And so while we require a settlement above 337.91 by a 1% margin for a valid long-term buy signal, which occurred last week, closing back below 337.91 by a full 1% margin is the sell signal that I would expect to play out into January, February of next year. So that clarifies it. What also clarifies weakness as we continue, do I have a zoomed in, more zoomed in weekly chart here? I do here. Okay, here we are. So let's kind of go back the last couple of weeks, what has played out. This week, Monday, we put out a new high that took out last week's high by just a bit. And what's happening now is we have fallen back and actually taken out on an intraday basis the low from last week. And so if we close today, Friday, below last week's low, which is 330.01, you can see in the far right, it says settlement below equals key reversal high. In other words, having put out a new high on this week and then closing back below last week's low, that is an outside week settlement below the previous week's low. That is a key reversal high. That is another classic sign of an overbought market that is likely to fall back over the next month, 2 or 3, into what is now 236.45. I think it's also called a bearish engulfing pattern in candlestick speak. So if we settle below 330.01 today, the week, it also, it is a sign of weakness on a couple of other counts. So this is a long way for me to say that if we close today below 337.91 by a 1% margin of 334.53, and certainly if we close below 330.01, and I kind of think we're already there with the daily chart and its settlement on Wednesday below 338.45, that we can expect 312.11 over the next 3 to 5 days or sooner, and over the next 3 to 5 weeks, what is now 276.41, where we can bounce nicely on a monthly basis, possibly back into the upper 330s. But I do think there's the very real possibility that if we do settle in that sell signal today, 236.45 rising weekly, in reach over the next 2 to 3 months. Inversely, upside. Let's cover the upside because we could rally today, and we don't have to rally significantly. All we have to do is settle today back above the 338.80 level, and that clears above the 337.91 on the weekly chart. It closes the market back above this 2-year channel bottom. I mean, all that together adds up to a stable to bullish market. The long-term buy signal still intact, believe it or not, above 337.91, and so closing today above 338.80. I want to add that because that's the same formation on the daily chart. So if we close above 338.80 today, I do then see possibly by the end of the year, but over the next few weeks anyway, 384.29, 414.49, say by the end of January or sooner, and 500.46 by the end of next year or sooner. And that gives the market a double top potential for a period of time at 414.49 for several months. But there's the very real possibility that we could reach 500.46 over the next 3 to 5 months, depending on circumstances. Is there anything else for me to say? I don't think so. I think I've said enough. I'm going to leave it at that. Please click like, share, subscribe. I will be back Sunday afternoon with Monday's Tesla report. You have a great weekend.